Hi, everyone. I'm Brian. I'm RideWise's Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships Specialist. In today's webinar, we're going to cover the car buying experience for EVs since they are so different from buying a gas car. There's a lot more considerations, and we also have a lot of incentives to go over that can help in you purchasing your EV and making it more affordable. So to start off, I'll pass it over to Jonce from PSE&G to go over some of those.
Thank you, Brian. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonce Dimoski. I'm the program manager of PSE&G's electric vehicle charging program. And today I'm just going to be discussing what PS has to offer for our EV charging program. And just as a mental note, I do work with other utilities in the state of New Jersey. So the other utilities in the state of New Jersey also have similar incentives. It's not one for one, but they are similar. Next slide, please. Move on. I do want to just emphasize here, the current program that we do have is for light-duty vehicles. So if you see LDV, that means light-duty vehicle. In the future, we do have aspirations to tackle medium heavy-duty as well. But for now, this is only for light-duty vehicles. So just a quick background before we dive into the incentives in terms of nomenclature. So I will be talking about make-ready. What make-ready means is basically installing infrastructure up to the stub without the actual charger. So the PSE&G's EV charging program is around the make-ready. So it's on the utility side or customer side, make-ready. So from a utility side, it's basically anything that the utility needs to do to support the installation of your requested EV chargers, whether it be level 2 or level 3. From the customer side, make-ready or behind the meter, I mean, a lot of these terms get interchanged, but what we like to focus on is customer side make-ready. So from a customer side make-ready, it's basically anything your electrician or your contractor has to do to support the installation of these EV chargers. Having said that, part of our program, as well as the other utilities, nobody incentivizes the actual chargers. That's left for the state to do. So the state does have programs to incentivize the chargers as long as we follow their guidelines. Next slide, please. So having said that, our EV charging program, just a little bit brief background. It was filed back in 2018 and approved January 2021. Having said that, it's 3 sub-programs. We have a residential level 2, we have a commercial level 2, and then we have a commercial level 3, or public DCFC charging. So those are the 3 categories. Our residential level 2 charging, it's as straightforward as it comes. It's for single family homes or any kind of residential home that installs a level 2 charger. Our level 2 mixed use commercial charging is 3 subcategories. It's for multifamily, it's for any government entity, or public accessible. Having said that, there is a category here that we do get questioned on a lot, and that's workplace or fleet. Having said that, at this current time, we do not have any workplace or fleet. What we do suggest to our customers is, if you do want to install it for your employees or whomever, you can install it underneath the public accessible, subcategory. And then what you can do on the customer side, there is, because you have to install point of sale anyway. With any of these commercial level 2 chargers, they come with the point of sale built in. You basically can have it for your employees one rate, for everybody else another rate, or employees free, or everybody else not free. And it's also an opportunity for revenue generation. And then finally, for the level 3, that has to be publicly available. That is one category and one category only. And then, like I mentioned before, across all 3 sub-programs, we do have the utility side and customer side make-ready. So what differentiates all 3 programs is the cap on each one. So for residential, the customer side make-ready is capped at $1,500 per charger. For level 2 commercial, it's capped at $7,500 per charger, up to 4 chargers. And then for public DCFC, it's $25,000 per charger for customer side make-ready, up to 4 chargers as well. that is another kind of caveat there. So for both the commercial programs, it's capped at four chargers per site. Versus the residential, there is no cap, but we haven't really seen greater than 2 chargers being installed at a residential household. I think we might have had one customer who installed 3 chargers and one customer who put in that they're going to install 4. They haven't done it yet, so that's a pending application. The other side of this is the utility side make ready. So same thing like customer side make ready, we have caps on that and they differentiate across all 3 sub-programs. So for a residential, it's $5,000 for any utility side make ready. For commercial, it's $10,000. And then for level 3 commercial, it's $50,000. And those are per site, they're not per charger. And the one bonus incentive that I like to call is for residential customers, we do offer off-peak credits. And then for level 3 public DCFC charging, we do offer demand charge rebates to lower the portion of that. So for that, it's 50% of your total demand charge. So if your demand charge is, say, $1,000, we discount it to $500. And for the residential off-peak charging, it's basically to incentivize residential customers to charge off-peak. So if you charge off-peak, your credit goes up. If during that time frame you decide to charge on-peak usage just reduces that credit. So in theory, if you charge only on-peak, your credit's 0. And having said that, it's because what we look at is we look at the difference of our current time of use residential rate minus our current normal residential rate. So it's a very big equation in the background. So I can't tell you it's, and I wish I could, it's like 2 cents or 10 cents per kilowatt hour. It's not. It's approximately 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour if you do charge 100% off peak. And then for level 2 commercial, we don't have a bonus or a bonus incentive, unfortunately. And the goal at the end of the day is to have approximately 45,000 chargers by 2028. We are trending ahead of that. And once the funds are depleted, then we basically, the program's done. So currently we're trending to be above 45,000 EV chargers because it's really based on the investment, not on the quantity. And the reason we're trending higher than 45,000 is just because the average incentives are coming in below the max cap. Any questions so far? Okay. And just on the right side, just some benefits. Some benefits that we all know here, or potentially all know, is what did you say was the goal? So the goal basically is to have 45,000 chargers between all 3 sub-programs. So it's split out by 40,000 residential. Sorry, can I just take control of the screen? I'm sorry. Can we?
Are you having trouble sharing your screen?
No, can you share your screen again? I apologize. I meant to go take remote control, but I asked to share the screen instead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. There you go.
Perfect. Okay, so just basically, okay, so first thing I'm just going to answer is, if you look at each of the categories, for residential, we're aiming for 40,000 chargers, residential chargers, but it's really investment based. And so if you just do 80 million divided by 40,000 chargers, it comes out to basically the max investment, which is 1,500 and 5,000. But since those investments are per application are coming in under, that number of 40,000 is going to be increased slightly. So that's why I keep on saying, like, you know, it's 45,000. That's what the target is. But since all the average investments are coming in under the max cap, that number is going to go slightly above. But for now, in terms of investment, we're good. You don't have to be concerned. The goal for 45,000 is across all 3 sub-programs, not just in a residential. And yeah, and currently we are at 15,000. I should have updated the chart on the bottom. It's not. It wasn't updated as of recent. Does that answer your question, Lisa? And you can unmute. You don't have to just. Okay, perfect. And then Stephen, so you're asking, explain the difference between behind the meter and pole to meter. Perfect. Sarah, can you just go back a slide, please? Okay, so what I mentioned earlier is utility side make ready or pole to meter, and customer side make ready or behind the meter. All that means is, well, whose responsibility is it to update that equipment? Is it the utility's responsibility or is it the customer's responsibility? So does that answer your question, Stephen?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the I didn't get a chance to like really study this image before, so thank you.
No, of course, it's fine, and I'm glad you said that. So, Sarah, I think I'm done with my slides. Can you just go to the end? And if I am, I'm just going to go to the website.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to show everybody. So if you go to pseng.com/EV, that is our website. That's our website for residential and commercial customers. So on here, any information that you need on our program is on here for residential or commercial. And also, this is how you go to apply for our program. So you'd click here. Well, first, let me go through the website. So we have residential, we have commercial, and then we have public DCFC. And it explains to you everything I have on the slide. And then in terms of eligibility requirements, the eligibility requirements really, I mean, I'm not sure if you do know or you don't know, but recently, this past year, the state passed or kind of said that we have to comply with the New Jersey Appliance and Equipment Efficiency Standards for EV charger level 2. So having said that, in the state of New Jersey, technically, if a charger is manufactured after January 18th of 2023, it has to be Energy Star. And because of that, our equipment, anything that applies to our program, also has to be Energy Star. For residential customers, you can qualify in 2 things. You can either qualify on the car, so we have a list of vehicle eligibility here, or you qualify based on your charger, which all it is it has to be Energy Star and level 2 smart. So that's just any level 2 smart charger that's Energy Star. And then you have to go through the new business process, which when you apply to our program through this link up here, we send that lead over to our new business team. And from that, you're going to have to submit documentation later. And same thing across the commercial programs as well. And the documentation just basically says proof of what chargers you got, as well as your invoice of your electrician or your contractor. It's a detailed one. It shows that that it's been paid, and then you just have to submit the permits that you took out and that your site was approved by your municipality. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, your account has to be in good standing, but that's just kind of from the company. And like I mentioned, this is residential, so it's approximately 10.5 cents per kilowatt hour. From a commercial perspective, you just click on here and it explains everything out. And then same thing for level 3 commercial. And then there's a lot more information, just FAQs that you just basically have to submit. The one thing I want to say is for commercial, if you are receiving any other federal or state funding, the maximum that the both incentives can total up to is 90% of the total project cost. So having said that, if you're receiving funding from any other source, that plus PSE&G can't exceed more than 90%. That's just a state regulatory thing. And then to apply, you just click here. It brings you to a different website. And then depending on what type of customer you are, if you have an account number, you can just apply with either my account or specifically with your account number. If you don't, you would just click here and you apply based on, this is without an existing account, and you would apply either if you're a level 2 mixed use commercial customer or a level 3 commercial customer. So let's just say you're a level 2 commercial customer. That's what, and then it's pretty straightforward. It would ask you some customer information, pretty straightforward. Is your mailing address the same? It is, great. So that would pre-fill there. And then it asks you for your charger information. So what charger do you have? Your charger ID and your model. So basically, if I were to select charge points, it gives you different types of models. Say it's the Express or this one. This is just your serial number. If you don't know it, you can just put TBD or what have you. Anticipated charger installation date. Again, it's one of those things where if you're aiming for November 1st of this year, put that. And then what is the KW or the rating of the charger? And then same thing here, your electrician or your contractor. Who's doing the installation? Again, pretty straightforward. Anything that's a red asterisk is required. As you can see, this isn't required. It would be very helpful though. And then since I selected the level 2 commercial, there's 3 different categories. Either your multifamily, government entity, or public location. If your public location asks you, are you open 24/7? Yes or no? And then are you receiving public funding? If you said yes, it's going to ask you, does it total more than 90%? If it's yes, that we just need to know that. If it's no. And then finally, how did you hear about the program? So pretty straightforward. Oh, and the one caveat is across all 3 sub-programs, you do have to agree to our terms and conditions and agree to provide your EV charging data. Having said that, for a residential customer, we basically get that data from your car or from your charger. For level 2 commercial, again, it's one of those things where you just have to provide it through manual documentation, and then you just have to drop your charger invoice here at the end of the day. So when you do apply, you do have to have your charger purchased. And just to go back, for DCFC, because for DCFC, we do require customers to upload that data. And initially, you would just create a login here. And then after that, you would just log in with your user ID and password, and that you would upload in the template we provide you your data. So usually that data, because I mean, a lot of our customers that we do have are just big customers like, you know, Electrify America, EVgo, Tesla, whomever, like the big players out there. They kind of already gave us that data outside of this this portal. This is more intended for dealerships or other smaller commercial customers that have installed DCFC chargers and they didn't have a way to submit it. So we created this portal so you can submit large sets of data through this way because email wasn't working. So any questions?
I'm gonna have people wait to ask their questions till the Q&A.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Jonce. I'm gonna share the screen again and we can jump into Mike's presentation. Okay, whenever you're ready, Mike. Oh, Mike, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
You
There
got me now? Yes. So good morning, everybody. My name again is Mike Hafertepe. I represent the Ciocca dealership group. First, I'd like to thank RideWise, Sarah, Catherine, and Brian for having me. And we'll just take a few minutes to talk about our group and then our investment into EVs. So If you go to the next slide, a little bit about Ciocca. If you're not aware of it, Greg Ciocca started about 45 years ago with $700 in his mom's garage, starting to sell used cars, and built it into an organization that now has 41 brands, 26 locations. Actually, we just had our 26 in Pennsylvania, New Jersey. We are on pace to sell about 32,000 new and used vehicles this year. That will actually rank us as the 51st largest dealer group or dealer organization in the United States. I think relevant to this, panel, I just thought I'd lay out the stores and operations we have in the New Jersey market. As you can see, we have a pretty large group of stores in the Flemington market. We have a group of stores in the Lawrenceville, Ewing area, and then we also have a group of stores in the Atlantic City area. So pretty good stretch. We probably cover 90% of the brands in the United States right now. Next slide, please. And then when it comes to EVs, our organization, kind of listed below is all of the various brand and models that we currently offer customers throughout our network. At this time, we are carrying approximately about 240 new vehicles in stock. We do have a few used vehicles as well. And while it's not quite to the EV discussion, we look at hybrid as also a value source, environmental source, and we do quite well with those. The market's pretty strong with those, but we currently have 85 new hybrids and 35 used hybrids. So give you a feel for our depth of inventory as we go forward. Next, please. I can honestly spend probably my whole time going over these slides, because there's a lot of incentive available. Obviously, John spent a lot of time going over what's available at the utility level for home chargers. But the biggest thing right now is federally you can get a tax credit up to $7,500 for the purchase of a new EV. There are a fair amount of restrictions around that tax credit. So I'd recommend you go in and look up exactly what the restrictions are there and what specific vehicles are eligible. But I will say on a purchase, there's restrictions, but on a lease, all EVs are eligible for an incentive. And interesting enough, at the federal level, the purchase vehicle is a tax credit, while the lease is basically treated as a rebate. The state of New Jersey currently offers also rebates. Again, there's restrictions on that. I'd recommend you make sure you're aware of what's available, but you can max out up to an additional $4,000 in state rebates. And one nice thing about the state of New Jersey is you do not pay any sales tax on the purchase of an EV in the marketplace. So I think that's a strong benefit. And if you hadn't heard, the state of New Jersey the governor just signed a statement that by 2035, the state would like to basically be selling 100% alternative fuel vehicles. So they're planning on phasing out all gas vehicles by 2035. In addition, the manufacturers have started to provide specific rebates on vehicles in the form of lease incentives, rebates, dealer cash. So again, it's always prudent to look into what's available and what vehicles you're interested in, what's available from the manufacturer. And many of those manufacturers also offer charging incentives. So they have partnered with a charging company, and they would then, provide you 1 year of free charging, let's say, with one of their brands. And so that's, again, something to take into account as you're looking into this. And again, John spent a lot of time, I won't get into it, but there are rebates available on the home charger side. So make sure if you're looking into this process, there's a lot of funding available, motivation available, incentive-wise across all kind of spectrums to take advantage of EVs at this time. If you go to the next slide, please. And then in addition, you know, there's also incentives now at the federal level for purchasing a used EV. So something to take into. Just as the slide says, one of the things that's you know, kind of important, you know, while mileage is something that we usually look at in terms of a current, you know, fuel vehicle is in terms of wear and tear. At the EV level, it's about battery degradation. How do batteries last, you know, the lifetime of the ownership? And as you can see, batteries now especially have come a long way. The quality and length of a battery can typically last now, you know, a fairly long time, frankly, longer than the typical life of a current vehicle. So, you know, you're usually seeing now battery lasting 12 to 15 years, getting well over 100,000 miles of use. As it is pointed out, almost all manufacturers now have warranties in the 8 to 10 year, 100,000 mile range on their battery from a battery protection standpoint. So, like I said, the quality and performance of batteries is increasing every day as technology continues to improve. You know, we hopefully will see, you know, longer lifespans and lower cost as we move forward. Next, please. And then you know, probably the biggest, you know, one of the things, other factors to play into a decision in purchasing an EV over, you know, a regular fuel vehicle, or we call it ICE, which is internal combustion engine, is the cost of ownership savings. Again, the fuel cost versus the charging cost. You know, if you're primarily charging your vehicle at home, and back to what John said, if you're using this, charging it at the low, you know, at the off-peak hours, you know, it's a relatively efficient cost. And you know, just this isn't this is just sort of an estimate, but if someone were to spend $60 a week in fueling their costs, that's what the annual cost of fuel would be over the course of a year. And the other element is that you know, an EV doesn't need a lot of the basic maintenance of a regular vehicle. So you're not changing the oil, you're not changing fluids, you know, you're not doing brake repair over the time. So there's a significant maintenance and fuel saving. So, you know, you can save a pretty significant amount in a year over year. And if you're owning your vehicle for a long period of time, you know, say 5, 6, 7 years, you know, you can get the ownership savings is, you know, pretty significant, a pretty significant difference between a regular ICE vehicle at this time. So it's something that I strongly recommend you take into effect if you're considering, you know, purchasing an EV at this time. That's one of the big, strong factors in this decision. Next slide, please. You know, the question was asked about the sales process difference. You know, there's one of the unique things in the EV world is right now there's you know, a few manufacturers that offer direct to consumer purchase processes. So you know, I'll use an example. Tesla is one of them. Rivian, Lucid. There's a number of brands out there. And their process is, you know, ordering you go online and you order the vehicle, and after a period of time it gets shipped. Tesla has created a small sales network and an even smaller servicing network. But the difference, obviously, with the original equipment manufacturers, the current brands out there, is they still are working off the process where they will ship vehicles to the dealership. So cars are ready for immediate delivery. So if you're thinking of a vehicle and you need to buy it immediately or in the near term, obviously the dealer network makes a lot of sense. But if you want a specific vehicle, it is available to order as well. So that's something that you want to to do. The other element I think that's important is at least at our group, and I think most dealer networks are in general, we are able to react to market conditions relatively quickly based on the trends of the market. So, we offer market-based pricing. One of the negatives of the dealership network is considered the haggling over pricing. We really want to try to minimize that. So we tend to try to put our best pricing out forward, try to get the best price out and maximize, your time and minimize really your time at the dealership to make it the experience as most positive as possible. The other thing, obviously, that the dealer network offers, I'll get to that question at the end, but it's a valid one. But the other thing that, the dealership network is still probably the most viable network as far as we still are a community that sells as many used vehicles as we sell new vehicles in this industry. So the used vehicle sales process or inventory and sales is very important to the dealer network. So, we value that trade. We value the sales process through that. So we'll always provide maximum value on that side. Again, we offer multiple finance options to make that process easier. And then most importantly, I think in the ownership cycle, the dealer network currently has an extensive service network. So if there is a problem with your vehicle, that it is, it is protected. And we've got a service network with, factory trained technicians to maximize, to make sure that your vehicle is protected and serviced properly. Ciocca, like probably most dealer groups, is in the process of installing chargers at all our locations. So we'll be able to provide charging for vehicles while they're being serviced, or if there's a short-term need to have a vehicle charged, we're having chargers put in at all of our locations at this point. So a lot's going on the the EV front, but the direction of the country, this year there's 40 EV models available. Just between this year and next year, there'll be 134 models. So you're seeing this industry slowly trend this way. And, ultimately the ultimate value to a consumer, in my opinion, is the ability to use your home as your fueling station. That's really what the EV process offers you. And for some people that have pretty consistent driving patterns, this makes a lot of sense at this point. So for those if you're interested right now, the market, the EV total sales market's about 7% of the total market. It's growing. This year it's growing probably at about a 50% clip. Last year it was growing at almost 100% clip. So it's still on a growth plane. We do see that, slowing down. Obviously, as you grow, you can't grow to infinity, but as multiple states are now putting in requirements to convert to complete alternative fuel by 2035, the manufacturers are scrambling to meet these guidelines to provide more. So that's going to long-term provide you more options, and also available. So those are my key points as we got it now. I saw a couple questions regarding, one was regarding anything regarding an accident on a battery. There have been, with time, I think with almost in any new model, even on the ICE side, sometimes we've seen hiccups. So some of the initial vehicles had some battery problems, but the manufacturer turned around and replaced all the batteries in the vehicles. So sometimes that takes a little bit of time. So there's been a little bit of a backlog of having battery availability. Now, again, that most of the glitches that I've saw in the early process of some of these battery vehicles is out of the system. We're now getting batteries at our dealerships to have for people. If you got into a car accident, if you got into a problem, we can make a, what kind of offers does that provide? So we're now seeing the point where we're seeing battery inventory at our stores to take advantage of anybody who has a immediate need and an immediate problem. I'm sorry, there was a couple other questions, but they came through as I was finishing that store. So Sarah, Catherine, maybe you saw them and could read them back.
Yeah, sure. Lisa asked, are auto dealer chargers considered public and open 24/7 for anyone to use, or only municipal, state, and county chargers considered public and open 24/7?
It depends on the location of the charger. So we're trying to we use our chargers for multiple use. We use our chargers for servicing vehicles. We use our chargers to stall, but we are installing chargers in public settings. So our dealerships that are accessible. So we do have some chargers that are not accessible because we're using them for the business team, but we do have some chargers that are being charged, will be public charged and will be available. So as an example, we have some ChargePoint and Blink chargers, and they will be on the ChargePoint and Blink network as we put them online.
I'm gonna jump to some of the questions that came in earlier, but I am gonna ask the most recent question because it's a fun one. What kind of car do either of our speakers drive?
So right now I'm driving a Subaru Solterra. So that's the car that I used to drive. That's before Ciocca, I worked for that brand, so I have an affinity with that, but it's that's the car that I use today.
Good question. I drive original Hummer H1. I get 2 miles to the gallon. I'm kidding. Obviously, guys, I'm kidding. No, I drive an F-150 Lightning.
Cool, nice.
So, and it's probably the best car that I've ever driven in my entire life, hands down.
Awesome. After this call, Mike, I'll have to ask you more about the Solterra because I'm a big Subaru girl. So.
Oh, great.
Jumping back to some earlier questions. Stephen asked, for commercial and public, this is for Jonce, do you recommend anything being installed besides NACS?
Yeah, so great question, Stephen. So currently right now, I mean, no utility is actually going to recommend what to install. I mean, we're not in the business of making recommendations. But what I can tell you is NACS is considered proprietary in the utilities' eyes as well as the state's eyes, regulatory body. We have those discussions currently going on with the regulatory body, the BPU, DEP, even on the federal level. NACS technically is proprietary. So having said that, any incentive that we do offer cannot be applied towards a proprietary charger. The current atmosphere of what's going on currently right now with NACS is interesting to watch and unfold. But at the current moment, if you were to apply with only NACS, you will not be eligible for our program.
The next question, oh, go ahead. Someone?
No.
Okay. So the next question was about if you're renting and there's a shopping center with chargers nearby, is it realistic to think if we had an electric vehicle, we could charge at the shopping center?
I mean, I guess this is, I'll give my personal and experience here. If you're renting, are you renting in a like multifamily house, or it's the multi-unit dwelling segment right now nationwide is kind of for full transparency. It's an area that's is being underfunded. So having said that, it's very tough. I have a program for multifamily, but the way it works is a lot of landlords or property owners and what have you, they're hesitant to get them installed. So I would say your best bet is to get one installed in your house or your apartment complex or wherever you live. Is it realistic if it's across the street or a block away? Yeah, I mean, if that's all you have, that's all you have. Ideally, you would want to have something on site. And the biggest thing I would talk about is, for my program, we do have multifamily. So your HOA, your landlord, whomever, would have to go through that process and they would have to apply and get the chargers installed. And those chargers would be available to everybody that lives there, not just for you, or it doesn't even have to be open to the public. But if you are in a situation where you live in, let's say, like a two-family home, and there is a way to install a charger, and it goes back to your unit's meter, that would be, then we would be, for my program at least, we would make the exception and say, hey, that's a residential charger. You can trail it back to the residential meter. We would basically have you apply into that program. If your landlord wants to apply for common chargers for all the, like, whoever lives there, then they would apply underneath the house meter or the common meter, which across all 4 utilities, that's a commercial rate. So that is the biggest caveat, and that's the biggest part that I would kind of say more work needs to be done industry-wide on multi-unit dwellings. Because if you live in an apartment and you're charging on your common meter, that's a commercial meter, and the tariffs are different. So you wouldn't get the residential rate. That's the biggest thing I would say. But if you don't have any other option, you have to go to the shopping center. It is what it is. You go to a gas station now. So what's the difference?
Yeah, just a personal comment on that is usually, and I would agree with you. So I'm starting to see more apartment buildings offer charging systems. You're starting to see shopping complexes offer charging systems. I will say that most of those places now, though, do put some sort of time restriction on your charging time, just to be, to offer it fair. So usually if you pull up, they'll usually say it can only be there for an hour or 2 hours. So you just want to make sure you're not, you're aware of all the restrictions that are in place. But there's a lot more. At my community, our local library has has a charging station behind it. So there are more public available, but there might be some restrictions tied to that. So just be aware of that.
Good point, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. And I will also add that I believe Google Maps now shows public chargers, similar to how it shows gas stations, and NJDEP also has a map of public EV chargers on their website. And we link to it as well on our own website. I'll put that link in the chat in a minute. So those are other good resources if you are in need of a public charger. Andy asked, since PSE&G does not rebate for the charger, what info does a buyer need to make sure that the charger they buy meets PSE&G and charge up criteria?
Good question, Andy. So from PSE&G's perspective, for a residential customer, it has to be a smart level 2 charger. At its basis, that's it. So any smart level 2 charger is applicable here. Having said that, Energy Star as well. Having said that, the most restrictive criteria here is the charge up criteria. So I would go based on that, because the state takes our requirements and they go even more restrictive on that. They have a list of chargers. So I would follow whatever's on the charge up website.
Oh, and Stan, thank you for including that list. I got another question from Eric. On one of Jonce's slides, he showed a wireless charging under a school bus. With Tesla mentioning wireless charging, is this something they will begin offering?
The type of charger, from my perspective, as long as it's universal, it doesn't matter. If you want to install wireless charging, let me know, because that would be beautiful. We don't have anybody that I know of doing wireless charging. It's a technology out there that's kind of, I don't want to say it's cost prudent yet, but from who I've spoken to, we haven't had any customer that gone that route, just because of multiple things. The biggest implementation of wireless charging that I know around here, I think it was Syracuse or Buffalo. They have their equivalent to NJ Transit, their public bus system that has a few buses and a few stops where when the bus stops to pick up passengers, it has a quick charge. Other than that, I'm not sure who else does it.
Thanks, Jonce. Lisa, yes, technically all the chargers on the NJDEP site are public chargers, but when I was making the web page for Somerset County chargers, I found that some of them were actually not public. They were for residents of apartment complexes only, or like a private business for their employees only. So there were a couple discrepancies that I did let DEP know about, and they said that they would work on fixing it on their end. But for that was only 1 or 2 chargers. For the most part, everything is public, and usually there's like a phone number you can call listed that you can call and ask to make sure. We also had a couple questions come in with people who had registered. Someone had asked, what is the lightest electric vehicle available? I learned recently EVs are 30% heavier than regular cars, and will wear out more. I don't know, is that okay?
Well, EVs are definitely heavier than a regular car. The weight of a battery makes it heavier, but the reality is because there's battery technology versus an engine, there's actually less moving parts in the vehicle. So there's actually less maintenance required. I would say the one area that is possible for a more repetition is because the cars are heavier, you're probably going to be, you might need to change your tires a little more frequently than a current regular engine. So, normally if a tire will last 50 to 60,000 miles, probably on an EV, it's going to be more like 40 to 50.
Thank you, Mike. I also see that Stan said that the lightest EV will be Aptera next spring. Another question that came in with registration, maybe Mike, you would know, is if any car manufacturer is planning on creating an electric minivan soon.
Yeah, well, the next VW has got one in the works that's coming next year. I think at the end of 24. If you go on their website and look, it's kind of a unique looking vehicle, but it is going to be a full electric. It is kind of cool. It is pretty cool at this point. But I would say most of the direction of manufacturers is following the trend that's in the industry, is primarily in the SUV area. That's where you're seeing most brands, and now you're going to start seeing, while Ford was one of the early, you're seeing more pickup truck EV options coming in the future. So convertibles, I would say convertibles are, a convertible really doesn't have any issue with the battery. That's just more what's the can the manufacturer make enough to turn a profit, you know, selling those products? So I would suspect that if they can create, you know, there's not you know, again, the industry in general is moving away from passenger cars to SUVs, you know, as a trend. So right now I'm not seeing a lot of convertible SUVs in the planning process. I'm not saying it's, you never say never, but that's just a trend that the auto industry is moving. Maybe in the future we'll see a trend back, but the manufacturer is just trying to kind of follow what the current automotive trend is, and that's more on an SUV and pickup truck trend, and that's where the first battery units are going.
Andy kind of addressed this question in the chat, but I'll ask it for our speakers as well, about the issue of taking a long distance trip and having to stop midway to charge. I don't know if that's anything that either of our speakers want to kind of talk about.
Well, it's I'll speak to it. It's you know, one of the differences between, you know, a current society with an ICE car. You know, it will take you longer, and you do need to plan a little bit better, you know, in your planning process to make sure you identify the chargers going forward. I'll make two comments. One is that it will take longer, but if you haven't heard, one of the things Tesla frankly did better than the OEMs is they set up their network of charging stations along with their production of vehicles. So really many OEMs, 7 OEMs now have partnered with Tesla. So starting next spring, a number of brands now will have access to the Tesla charging stations. So that will greatly improve it. And then another partnership of manufacturers has committed to make 30,000 chargers over the next 5 years. So you're going to see a great influx of chargers. The biggest difference now is it takes you about, you know, where it would normally take you about 4 or 5 minutes to fill up your car, it'll take you about 45 minutes to charge up your car. And someone pointed out in the charge that usually only gets you to about 80%. So even with the level 3 chargers, once you get to about 80%, to get from 80 to 100 takes, as the battery capacity fills up, to fill up that last bit is actually, not only is it take a long time, it's fairly inefficient. So that is something going on. I will let you know, like, just because I'm close to it, like Ford has chargers at their test center in Dearborn. They can charge a Mach-E in about 7 minutes. The problem is those chargers are over about $1.5 million right now. So there's again, as this production, they'll get, so I will tell you, as this trend moves closer, you're going to see more chargers, more plentiful and quicker charging, because I think the industry is moving to where, from a customer base standpoint, people don't want to wait 45 minutes to charge. They want to make 5 minutes to charge. And so it's not there yet, but in the near term, I don't know, 3 to 5, maybe 7 years, I think you're going to see much shorter charging times.
Lisa asked a question, and I think since it's almost 11, this will be the last question that I'll read and ask for now. But if anyone else has any questions, we will be sending a follow-up email, and we'll have our speakers' contact information, so you can always reach out with more questions. But Lisa asked, I heard NACS may become industry standard, and more cars adding to that in 2024 through 25. Is it best to wait until then to buy an EV, or try a lease for now?
I think this is personal opinion, to be honest with you. I think there's a war happening right now between NACS and CCS. Like Mike referred, You have 8 OEMs that are hopping on board to the NACS, but then again, you have, I forgot the exact number, but you have Stellantis, which is Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, that's leading the charge, and Mercedes, BMW, among others, that are holding true to CCS. So I think there is going to be a divide going forward. And in terms of, even if you do have an NACS or non-NACS, I think the adapters are going to be interchangeable in the future. Well, it is now. The only thing right now is the Tesla supercharge network. Everything else you can charge regardless. So you can charge a Tesla at a CCS station. You just can't charge your non-Tesla at a Tesla station. Having said that, I think going forward, it's going to be less of a concern because, like Mike said, and also personally, I know we are incentivizing for a ton of public superchargers to be installed, and this is just the first wave. Having said that, we are seeing in the pipeline a lot of CCS fast charging being put out there in the network. So I think, like Stanislav said, the earlier you buy EV, the earlier you start saving. So I think that's a personal choice.
Yeah, I think John said it best. If using an example, Tesla right now, it has an adapter for about $200 that allows them to adapt at non-Tesla charging stations. You're going to see that adapter become available. And so both brands are going to offer adaptable or adapters to make it accessible for any charger. And chargers are going to become much more plentiful. But I still want to, I think the biggest thing to point out is the exception versus the rule. The benefit of owning an EV is, frankly, is charging it through your house. That's really where this thing really is the big cost savings. So with the idea that you're going to use your home as your primary charger, that's when this thing makes a lot of sense. If you're a variable driver and you're going to need outside public charging, it's not really as big a cost savings because that charger cost isn't that much, that much different than buying a fuel at current prices. So that's the thing I would keep in mind when you look at your lifestyle and what you want to do. The absolute benefit to this deal is the home charging system. That's when this thing makes perfect sense.
Yeah, Mike, I know we're over time, but I want to echo that 100%. I've done analysis on this, and 80% of all charging going forward is going to be, well, also what we see, because we track these charging as well currently, 80% to 90%, depending on your geographic location, you do at home or workplace charging. Having said that, at that point, it doesn't matter what your configuration is because the adapters are available, but I want to bring it back to that one slide that Mike had at the beginning for the cost savings over year one of just saving from fuel to electricity fueling up. Our estimates currently now, depending on fuel prices, are anywhere from 70% reduction to 90 to 95% reduction, depending on your utility and where you are, gas prices. So I think, Mike, I did the quick math on your calculation. It shows a 78% savings per mile, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, thank you to both Mike and Jonce for your great presentations. And thank you to all our attendees for your great questions. I saw a couple other questions roll in about like the other environmental factors to consider and wear and tear on roads and things. And as Stan said, that is a good topic for a future webinar. Maybe we'll look into that more. I do also believe we touched on it a little bit in an earlier webinar that we had, which is on our website at ridewise.org, but not in as much detail as it deserves. So that's something we'll look into for future presentations. So thank you everyone for attending today, and thank you to our speakers. We'll be sending up a follow-up email with the recording and contact information. So thank you and have a great day. I don't know if Brian, if you wanted to say anything to wrap it up. Or...
Thank you for attending, everyone. Thanks so much. I think we had a great discussion.
Yep. Thanks again for having me. Take care.
Of course,
Thank
thank you.
Bye.